Guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another episode of Svelto Performance. Today we're back on the Alfa Romeo GTV commission build, specifically working on the engine, which is on the engine run stand. Let's get started. All right, guys, here's the motor. We've got the engine or cam cover off of it. That has been sent to the powder coating group. Can't wait for you to see the color of the cam cover. It's going to be really cool. It's going to look great. So that's off to the shop. All right, today what we got to do is two things we got to do. We got to take the fuel injection throttle bodies off, the intake off. We've got to drill holes in the intake for the fuel injection for vacuum. So we're going to work on that. And then come over here, we got to work in this area here. We got to work on getting the motor prepared for our Alfaholics, which we purchased this. This is not a sponsored video, but this is the twin belt pulley. We're going to be using that. So we'll talk a little bit about that here in a little while or a few minutes. But we're going to focus specifically right now on taking the intake off. So it's been a while since I've done this, but we've got, we've got some bolts that we've got to, screws and stuff that we got to take out to get this whole thing off and get it completely off the intake itself. So let me get started. We'll come right back. Let me go ahead and get the throttle bodies off to start with, and then we'll move further into the motor itself. That way you can see exactly how we're taking this off and exactly what we're going to be doing. All right, stay tuned. All right, first step was to remove the fuel rail. And of course, this is the hardware. We have these spacers here, and basically unscrew these here, which I'm going to put these screws back on so we don't lose them. And we'll put this in a baggie here, the fuel rail with the injectors. So the first step was to get that off. Now we're going to focus on, we're going to have to remove all these hex here, and they have to come off at a certain way. And then the injector or the throttle bodies will come off here. And then once we have the throttle bodies off, then we can get the intake completely removed. So let me go ahead and bag up this and get that taken care of so we don't lose anything. And then go to the next step, which is starting to remove the throttle bodies. Alrighty, we've got the throttle bodies off. The hardware is back on here just to hold where the fuel rail goes to keep the screws and the spacers on here. So we're going to leave those there. We'll get those in bags here in a minute. I've got basically the fuel rail and the injectors in a bag. So come back over here. So the next step now is to we'll move that out of the way, but to go ahead and get the intake off. So basically the hex screws that we're using, these are 6 millimeter. Use this little tool here. 6 millimeters is what we've got on those. So we're going to leave the plates here on. As you can see, those are going to stay on. There's no reason to remove them. And yeah, so go from there. And we're going to leave the gaskets on here as much as possible as well. Probably just replace those again with more new ones. So here we're going to go ahead and start removing these. I think they're either 12s or 13s. I think they're 13s. So we're going to go ahead and get all these bolts off and then get this whole thing here, the whole intake system completely off. That way I'll show you where we're going to drill the holes for the vacuum. All right, we've got the intake off. See, this isn't that difficult. It's pretty simple. And here's the intake here. So you can see, ended up taking the gaskets off. They ended up coming off. So we'll probably make new ones there. the gasket for the intake is new, so we never really had it cinched down hard, so this will be good. We'll reuse that. Okay, so basically what we're going to do, let me set this up. So as you can see kind of down the runners here, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to drill into here, and that's where we're going to put vacuum lines. So they're going to come in here so that we catch it through the runner and that we're able to handle the vacuum from down below on this intake here. So we'll be drilling and then tapping in some vacuum ports, and then we'll have the vacuum lines itself. And of course this vacuum line here, or that will go to the brake booster as well. So yeah, so that's what we've got on the intake. And then also you can see here we've capped off something with the Spica here, that's capped off. So should be good to go, but there you go. So intake is off. We're ready to start working on drilling, and that's what we'll do next, is get that drilled. But let me come over here and show you again what we're going to be doing here. Okay, so this was the original pulley that we were going to use, and that was, of course, here on the crank. And then we had a bracket here that had the trigger sensor, or the sensor for the crank was going to be off these teeth here, right? So now we decided we want to put AC in the car, which will go where this block off plate, the mount will go where this block off plate's at for the Spica. So we'll remove this, and this is where the bracket will be mounted for the AC compressor. But in order to do that, we're going to have a twin pulley, belt pulley, right? And so this comes from Alfaholics. They did not give us this. We paid retail for it off their site. They are not sponsoring the video. Okay, so what we're going to have to do, of course, remove the nut here, but we're going to have to take some of this Spica guard, belt guard off. Really, we want to come back to about right here, because this guy won't fit all the way in. So we've got to do that. So what we'll do is we'll cut all this off as far as we can, back as close as we can to the water pump here. We'll slice it and then start the cut. So that'll also be the next step here. We'll decide here just in a second what we'll do first. But that's the next step as well, is we've got to take part of this guard off. Now, if I would have thought about it, I would have got a different timing cover for it, and that would have been fine, and we wouldn't have to worry with this. I didn't think about it. That was my fault. So we're going to work with what we got. I don't want to tear the engine apart to get the timing cover off. This thing is already sealed, and I do not want to unseal it and have to reseal it and all that. So it's going to stay the way it is, and we're going to just cut that guard off here. All right, guys, so here's where we're going to start. Brad is getting the tool ready, but we're going to cut here and here, and then take all of this guard out so that we can get the pulley in there. So we've got it taped pretty much where we want to cut up to, and we're hoping we can do it without taking the water pump off. It's already sealed, like I said earlier, and I really don't want to unseal it, remove it and go from there. So if we can help it, we're going to keep it on, but our goal is to get kind of around this edge here all the way to about right here, and then that should get enough material off so that we can get the pulley on. So just waiting on Brad to get the tool adjusted, and then we'll get started. All right, cross your fingers. We're getting ready to start to cut on the Spica guard. We're using this DeWalt tool. I can't remember the name of it, but it's literally like a Dremel on steroids for sure. Now, you can see here where we're going is we're starting at the curve of this Spica cover here, the Spica guard. We're starting at the curve, and I am, as I'm filming, I'm also watching to make sure we don't touch the crank, which Brad did an excellent job, steady hands, working right along the line that we taped to make sure that we do not cause any issues. Here we're going at the, we've got the curve done, so now we're going at the bottom, and we're going to come in at a slight angle. That slight angle will get us right in there up to that tape line, right where we want for sure. And now we're going up at the top of it to cut, to cut into it right, right at the tape line. Again, this tool is literally cutting through this aluminum, this casted aluminum, super easy. So here we're just kind of looking at what's the best way to cut this thing. Again, keeping away, staying away from the crank itself. So we decided to come in at an angle here. This will be a lot easier for us to control the cut. We can always grind down and get it flush once we get to that point, and you'll see here in the video that's what we did. So Brad is coming in at an angle here. We'll get it started, kind of look at it, make sure it's right, and then get straight through the aluminum. Again, this tool is making the work a whole lot easier. I thought about it just a standard Dremel, and I tested it on a few things, and it just seemed, the Dremel just seemed to have a problem cutting through casted aluminum easily. Also, I felt like we had more control with this tool, even though the blade is huge on it. I think it's like 5 1/4 inch blade or something like that. But anyway, so here you can see Brad now has got the cut at the top. Now we're going to relieve the cut down at the bottom, and then we'll be able to get the remainder of it. But I mean, as you can see how just easily this thing comes through. All right, guys, we have the cut. So Brad went down and cut, and we just cut down as much as we could, and then kind of with a, what is that bit called we used? End mill. An end mill. Then we just kind of shaped it up a little bit, just made it round and cleaned it up. So now when we get the Alfaholics pulley, see if I can do this with one hand. There we go. And then, of course, the nut, and then we'll torque it down. We're going to have to put a spacer back behind here. It's hard to see, but the nut's going to bottom out, so we're going to have to get a spacer back behind it, or we're going to get a new nut and a washer back there and do it that way. So I'm pretty much tight here, and there's a gap back behind here between here and the pulley. So anyway, so that'll be for another video to get that done. So I think we're completed with this step here in the pulley. So our next item is going to be drilling the holes for the intake. So we'll jump on that. All right, guys, we are sitting here with the intake. Apologize for the big mess here on the workbench, but just wanted to show you, get a clear shot. So what Brad's going to do is he's going to drill a hole in each of these runners, and then this is where we're going to put these little barbs in for the vacuum for the fuel injection here. So we're going to try to stay closer up as we can here, not further down, but so closer up on each side. And then we'll get the barbs in there, have ordered them, and we'll be able to get vacuum on this intake and then put the intake back on the motor and get the motor, the final preps to get the motor running on the engine stand. So again, we're about to drill somewhere closer up towards the top to get the barbs in so we can get vacuum here off these runners. All right, let's start drilling. So we're going to start on the first runner here, as you can see, and then move over to the second, and then we'll get over to the third and then to the fourth. So as you can see, this drill and drill bit is making this job pretty easy. So once this is done, we'll move on to the next stage, which will be tapping the holes and getting everything prepared for the barbs. So let's finish the drilling. Alrighty, drilling is completed. So now we are tapping the holes. You can see Brad just taking his time going through each runner to fully tap them. And then the next step after they're all four tapped is we'll go ahead and put in the barbs and get those secured in. And then we'll be wrapping up this part of the project. So super, super excited. All right, we got the holes drilled and tapped, as you can see. So now we're gonna put the nipples for the vacuum line on here. We'll go ahead and screw them down. I ended up finding the extra ones that we ordered a while back, so we don't need to wait for new ones to come in. We've got them here, so let's go ahead and get thread sealer on them, and Brad will get them put in, and we'll wrap this video up. Okay, holes are drilled, holes are tapped. Now we're putting the barbs in there. I'm definitely using some thread sealant. This is rated for gasoline, so if any gas gets through there, it shouldn't cause any problems of eating up the sealant. You can see now we're just putting the barbs in each runner. They're all kind of angled close to each other, and of course, you'll see in the next couple episodes, possibly or at some point, you'll see us hooking up the vacuum lines and all that. So thread sealing again on the very last runner. And yeah, everything's looking good. So let's get to the next step. Alrighty, and here is the final product. Again, we just found these little nipples or barbs or whatever you want to call them. So as you saw in the video, we put some thread sealant and we've got them tight here. So they look good. They look pretty much uniform, and it's kind of hard to see. You can see kind of the white sealant here. So we should be good to go. Just another step closer to prepping this engine to get fired up. All right, guys, so there you have it. We successfully completed round one of prepping the 2-liter motor to get this thing fired up on our engine stand. Still have a lot to do. Got to get the intake back on, got to get the injector throttle bodies put on, the injectors on. I got to rebuild it all back, or put it all back on. I got to get the headers on it. We'll do that. Also got the cam cover back from powder coating. Can't wait to show you the color, but you'll have to wait to another episode, probably part 2. On what we're, on prepping this motor to get it cranked. Also got the air box back. Spoiler alert, we're going to use the Spica air box, but had her paint it. She's going to look good once we have it installed or sitting on the motor. I got to build the runners and a few other things so it can connect to the throttle body. Then we got to put oil in it. We got to get the computer wired. All the wiring is in the car. We gotta get all that wiring out, get it connected, the computer, everything done. Coolant, radiator, the whole 9 yards. So we got a little ways to go to get this thing fired up, and we're just taking our times, but it's also just such a nervous feeling thinking about cranking this motor for the first time. The whole rebuild, everything, of course, all those videos, you can go back and look on the playlist. So yeah, we're getting a step closer. So the next video, you'll see this thing all buttoned up, getting closer to firing it up. All right, that's it. That's all the time that we have tonight. Please like, subscribe, ring the bell. We truly hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, God bless.